Perfect. Here we go. What's up, everybody? How we doing? Welcome back to another weekly live stream here on Celtics Digest. It's your host, Bruce Veliz and Patrick Billings. And Patrick, we had an interesting week ahead of us with the Celtics this past week, don't you think?
Yeah, there was a lot of positives, couple negatives, of course, with the injury report. Once again, it's kind of been the talk of the Celtics for the last few weeks, but I mean, definitely some positives. A lot of wins, not too many losses, so you can't really complain.
100%. And we'll be diving into all those positives, all those negatives as well. We're kind of looking at some injury reports and kind of diving into that as well. All on this update here on Celtics Digest on this weekly stream. And it's going to be a great one. We're going to dive in, get into all that jazz. And let's get into that stuff right away, Patrick. As we see with the Celtics here this past week, they've had uh, 4 games this week, and in these 4 contests, they played against the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Brooklyn Nets twice, and the Miami Heat. And yesterday, they obviously just had that recent performance versus the Brooklyn Nets. But we want to kind of look back. We can discuss first, unfortunately, the loss here that the Celtics suffered versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. And what were some kind of main points that you kind of took away from this game versus Oklahoma City from the Boston Celtics perspective?
That Jayson Tatum and Al Horford are needed to help them win in big games, and they are stepping up in those big games as well. I mean, we talk about Al Horford all the time being the star stopper. Obviously, he's not going to be the one guarding Shea if that's the case, but I think there's a lot to learn with this game with the Celtics when it comes to the defensive side of things. Just trying to contain a guy like Shea, it's pretty impossible. He's going to be doing his own thing, but I thought the defense was a little bit poor from the Celtics, which isn't something that we usually see, especially in the past. But we talked about a lot of wide open threes that they were giving a lot of guys on the Thunder just in the corner on the pick and roll. But I mean, again, these guys are going to play good in the good games, but the bench needs to step up in these games. That's what I'll take from that.
100%. I was going to say, I think the main takeaway for me is the bench production from this game because we saw in both contests versus the Oklahoma City Thunder, they having some solid bench production, them having some, depth spread out as we know with the OKC team. For the Celtics here, obviously big games from Tatum, Horford, and Derrick White, but some quiet performances nonetheless from the rest of you. As we look at through that bench rotation, 9 and 8 from Luke and Peyton Pritchard, not as impactful as some of these other guys on Oklahoma City. But the Celtics were able to bounce back, like we said, not too much of a big time loss versus the Oklahoma City Thunder, a top tier team, but the Celtics are expected to play amongst the best against them. And they got their revenge versus the Miami Heat and the Brooklyn Nets this week. So in this Miami Heat game, what were some main takeaways from you that you thought, Patrick?
Well, we talked about this game being a little iffy. Um, we both expected the Celtics to get a win against the Thunder, honestly, and I still would have said that a day later. But I mean, I think regardless, the Thunder deserved that win. But in this one, the Celtics are able to bounce back. Jrue Holiday started to figure out his shooting with that tape on his pinky. Right? Is he wearing tape over it, or is it like padding? I don't know what it is, but it's
He's got the
massive.
little he's got the little like splint thing. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
got this little
So
protection.
so with him being able to shoot well with that, I think that's a positive. And Tatum again bouncing back, another 28-point game, just being very productive. And another game without Kristaps Porziņģis that they played well, but they're always going to be tough playing the Heat, especially on the road.
100%. And the Heat have kind of gone and fallen off a little bit. We discussed this, in
Right.
our breakdown looking at this game, but post Jimmy Butler, they have not been the same team. Even in this recent last stretch of games, they have been on a losing streak, and it's put them, obviously the Eastern Conference is a little bit weak, so they're going to be in the play-in most likely, but they're currently sitting at the 10th seed and potentially not even make the playoffs at this point, which is, a drastic change of things when you compare this, rivalry a couple seasons ago. But once, like you mentioned, once again for the Celtics, this is where Jrue Holiday really came out and showcased his dog for the Boston Celtics with no Jaylen Brown in this lineup, no Kristaps Porziņģis. He had to step up and be one of those stay ready guys. And we mentioned the stay ready group kind of with the bench mentality, Luke Cornett, Sam Hauser, Jordan Walsh, Xavier Tillman, Torrey Craig, those type of guys stay ready. Even Baylor Shireman yesterday, stay ready type of mentality. But you also see that mentality with guys like Al Horford and Jrue Holiday when guys like Derrick White or Jaylen Brown potentially are having an off night or also sitting, which I think is very key for the Celtics because this team, as we mentioned, is so deep top to bottom. Everybody's taking a sacrificial role to kind of push to the best success for this squad.
Yeah, and I think it's just kind of annoying that they're not showing up in the big games though, because we're seeing a lot of times like with the last game as well. Like they're able to show up, but then against the Thunder, they're not showing up. And that's where they need to show up the most. I mean, this game as well, Peyton Pritchard doing his thing, playing well, but Neemias Queta getting a ton of minutes, Sam Hauser getting a ton of minutes. Hopefully he gets out of his slump. And one of these days, I hope so, maybe against the Jazz, but like I said, man, this bench shows that they have a lot of depth and a lot of confidence in playing well, but they can't just play well against the bad teams. You got to step up and help this team out against some of the best in the league.
100%, 100%. And the Celtics have had, those closer matchup against some of those top tier teams across, the East and the West. But over these last couple of stretches, have been able to get those kind of games, big W's as well. As we look a little bit back, that Nuggets game was pretty key. The Lakers game was pretty key as well. But looking at, once again, some weaker opponents, but making the games close, though, Patrick. We
Yeah.
know the Celtics like to keep these games close, and the Nets, a team dealing with some injuries, dealing with potentially wanting to tank, kind of all that jazz. They, have put themselves in a little bit of a weird predicament, and we see with the Celtics here. There's no Cam Thomas, so the Celtics get a little bit easier of a fight. But we look back at this game, the first one versus the Nets, we saw it was an absolute domination from Kristaps Porziņģis in the fourth quarter, alongside a Jayson Tatum masterclass.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you can still hear me, but it's frozen on my side. But yeah, I mean, the Celtics do like to do like to give away their leads a lot, and this one did come close at the end. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was good to see Kristaps Porzingis get back. I think that was the highlight of this one as well, especially with the last game. Just able to just step back into the swing of things and be able to fill himself right back into the lineup. That's huge. Tatum putting up another great performance with 8 assists. That is what I love seeing him play at. Getting those rebounds and assists. I'll take 25, 8, and 8 from him. I don't need a 30 ball every single time, but if you give me 25, 8, and 8, that's when the Celtics are playing well, when he's passing the rock like that.
100%. And you got to love to see, not only alongside that, this is where the bench production's coming in. Luke Cornett, Peyton Pritchard really keeping key. And even Namish Keita in these performances played pretty solid. 6 points, not like the greatest on the stat sheet you look, but you watch the games, he is doing the right things, being in the right spots against some of these other weaker opponents, which could help out the Celtics with some, much needed depth in maybe some of these earlier series as well throughout the playoffs. But now, well, hit the wrong game. Now we're going to look about the second game versus the Nets, which we talked about a lot yesterday, talked about in today's recent video as well. So definitely go check that out. The main story, obviously, has been Baylor Sharman. You want to touch on that a little bit quick with some other main pointers that you saw from this game?
Yeah, I like that. The main focus, right?
Yeah, yeah, I didn't even do that.
Love
That wasn't even on
it.
purpose. So, I mean, that was good that you caught
Yeah,
that.
well, instantly. He's the main event. He's the main event. Nah, that's Cooper Flag. Hopefully he's a Celtic soon too. So, but anyways, um, Baylor Shireman again. Like we've talked about him so much. We talked about how much we watched him back in college and how good that he could be. And I think just his confidence is growing and growing and is going to continue to grow. Right now, he's the 3 point shooter, but I think within the next few years, he's going to really just be that three-level scorer and be able to actually be a ball handler at points like he has at Creighton.
100%. And we kind of touched that on the recent video, kind of saying how he was a combination of Sam Hauser. Peyton Pritchard has that ball handling qualities of that Peyton Pritchard to where he can be that guard and kind of create his own shot, set himself up for those opportunities, but also has that length and that size to, be a quality defender on the wing, fight for those rebounds. Not that Peyton Pritchard also doesn't fight for those rebounds, but you know what I mean. Having that hustle gives them that extra bonus. Not only to mention with that, Kristaps Porzingis once again was absolutely fantastic in this game. Really to kick off the bat, 9 for 13 from the field, 13 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, and 3 blocks, 25 points. And that was, Kristaps Porzingis as a number one option without the Jays. We don't really see this quite often, and for a guy that just recently coming back and able to ramp up and get into that first option mentality is also great to see for the Celtics going into the playoffs as well.
Yeah, and I think another positive looking at other things as well is these little breaks in between these games now, so he could actually get that rest and actually play again on I think it is Friday. So they got a couple days break here, and this is huge for the Celtics with all these injuries that are going on. And they need to stop now because they need to get healthy before the playoffs, or else I'm gonna start getting annoyed. We can't be doing this, Bruce.
No, I agree. I agree. We know that the, major concern with the Boston Celtics is that health, but them trying to, maintain these injuries kind of over these last, 15 or so games for the Celtics, trying to make sure that they're able to hold their own. Obviously, the Celtics now have at least 69 games played, which is kind of wild to say. So, I believe that's what, 13 games left on the season, right? So, to be exact, so the Celtics kind of resting those guys. Obviously, had those lengthy rests for Porzingis and for Jrue Holiday, so hopefully those guys don't see any more rest. But maybe we'll see some more sporadic nights for Tatum and Brown, potentially sitting up, maybe even Derrick White, Al Horford, Sam Hauser, to kind of get some of these other guys kind of under their feet. We didn't get to see much of anyone else that I was really interested to see. Jordan Walsh didn't get much playing time. Kata got some playing time. Was there anyone else that really impressed you from this game?
Um, Honestly, like it was really just between Porzingis and I mean, of course, Drew Holiday. I mean,
Yep.
he's constantly excuse me, not Drew Holiday. I meant Derek White actually. Just constantly being consistent, being that guy to just step up and hit some big shots. He wasn't shooting well. Drew didn't shoot well from literally the whole team didn't feel like they shot well from three. So that's why Baylor Shireman being able to step up and hit some big threes was huge in this win, honestly, because if he didn't hit that, the team had no confidence. They didn't have any hype, and him hitting these shots, especially that buzzer beater, was the difference, honestly. But
100%.
I think one thing I do want to see if it talks about people, stepping up. Hopefully, when he's healthy, it's Jaylen Brown. I mean, I don't know what's going on with this injury with him. What's the deal? But he is not shooting the ball well at all. So I'm hoping that it's not something too serious. But he has not been playing some good basketball.
Yeah, we can kind of get into that, and I like talking about that next as we've seen Jaylen Brown obviously been sitting out these last couple games for the Boston Celtics. We haven't seen him, been available. We saw him out this last performance here, and I want to kind of look at that as we try to figure out some stuff here. So let me see if I can pull this up, but I believe Jaylen Brown has a couple games only that he can miss before he is not eligible to be able to play for any awards, which could be a little bit questionable for him as well. So let's see if we can find this.
Yeah, I'm
If
curious. Especially this is the first year with that the games limit as well. So it would
yes,
be
this
interesting to see what he would be doing, like awards wise. I mean, I would assume just an All NBA third team, but with a lot of guys missing games, I mean, it gives other ones opportunity to get that. So I'd be curious to what else he'd be up for. I mean, definitely not all defensive team, as there's only two instead of the three.
hmm
But I think he's just an underrated defender regardless. I think we all know that as fans, but kind of just gets overlooked by everything else that the team provides. But yeah, I really would like.
I hit the wrong I hit the wrong button there. So sorry. We are in a we're in a different time zone over there, but I'm still looking for this tweet here, so I brought us back over here so we can kind of not have to see me back scroll Twitter to kind of find what we're talking about. But like you mentioned, Jaylen Brown, very solid, effective player, has been pretty solid on the defensive side as well. Like you mentioned, for this Celtics team, which has been really effective, and we saw that through the playoffs last year. We saw that in the finals when he took on Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, how he was able to be such a defensive presence for this Celtics team, and I think that really kind of sets him off in this stratosphere where a lot of people as well don't necessarily like where some people will look at his offensive struggles and maybe not get as mad, you know what I mean, with this Celtics team because how much he provides for the Celtics team on the defensive side. But for some shooting struggles for Jaylen Brown, besides basically that Lakers game there, would love to see him be able to get back into that stride of things for the Celtics and be readily available for this team and not have dealing with these injuries either.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that that separates the Jays as well on defense is that they want the biggest matchup. They have Drew Holiday on defense. Everyone knows how good he is on defense, but when it came to guarding SGA, it was like Tatum, Brown, SGA. They were throwing a couple of guys, but I feel like Brown was covering him more primarily. So they want those matchups and they want to make those all defensive teams. That's been their goal for the past few years, and they want to be known more as a two-way player than a more offensive type of player. But that'll also help with an MVP later in the years. But hopefully Tatum will kind of get past this whole aura thing that we got going on. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's a little bit ridiculous. I don't know if you saw this. I saw a post from Jack Simone, which he has been like breaking down some stuff. He talked to Luke Cornett, and they were talking about Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum kind of attacking differently, and how like each of them likes to go out different ways with screens and stuff like that. It was a really cool video going into it, talking about Tatum kind of attacking the bigs, Jaylen Brown attacking the smaller guys. Some of those guys and wants to get a little bit more aggressive on those guys to get a little bit more of a drawing them into the foul, kind of hitting an off balance shot.
Mhm.
When you see obviously Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum really playing these games where they obviously get to dynamically stand out, but then you see the games where they're not there as well, like last night where you get to see Porziņģis and Derrick White and all these other guys really stand out. What really what really gravitates to you about this Celtics team when their stars are not playing and versus when their stars are playing? Because to me, it's the defensive prowess with this team, regardless of the fact of you taking out those stars, they're going to work hard and they're going to give you their best product, regardless if it's with guys like Baylor Shireman, Peyton Pritchard, or if it's with those top tier guys as well.
Yeah, I think even the offense somewhat. I mean, it looks the same, but it doesn't, of course, feel the same.
Hmm.
Definitely a lot more threes are getting put up as well, and a lot more moving the ball. I feel like. I mean, Tatum and Brown do like their ISO balls. Derek White's not changing his game whatsoever. He's still getting the ball on the catch, and he'll catch it if it's at his knees, and he'll put it back up. But I think one thing that stands out is really just Porzingis' game, and that he doesn't change it, but Derek White just being a primary guard as well, just kind of taking over that point guard type of mentality that he had when he was with the Spurs. And when he was a great player there as well, playing beside, DeJounte Murray. So he's able to play that guard and be a primary ball handler as well. But I mean, this team, even without the Jays, is still great, but it's honestly interesting to watch them and how they play. It does have the same feel, but it always feels like there's something missing.
Yeah, I feel like with this team, they're just so well rounded.
Right.
They're very lucky, and obviously you got to give credit to um, the top of the team with Joe Mazzulla and that, but you have to give credit to the front office as well because they have been doing an absolute fantastic job with this Celtics squad. And I found this tweet here, so we can kind of get into it. But yeah, from Ian, we see it. Jaylen Brown is out for the Celtics, obviously, last night. And if he misses 4 more games, he will be ineligible to win any awards or make any All NBA team. So that's something to kind of look at with Jaylen Brown and dealing with this injury because we've seen with this Celtics squad, not with the Celtics squad, but with other NBA players is hindering people. Luka Doncic, Joel Embiid, stuff like that. So it could potentially hinder Jaylen Brown from making any All Defensive teams or potentially an All NBA team as well.
Yeah, I think the All NBA team is definitely one that I could see him winning more. There's been a lot of guys that I do like the defensive team because it does give a lot of guys that are underrated as players a chance to win something because
Hmm.
there is a ton of good defenders that aren't stars in the league, but you just know that they're in there for defense and they're great at what they do. But I would love to see one of the Jays make it one of these years. I really do think they will, but got to do it within the next couple of years and really start stepping up and really locking in on defense.
100%. And we've seen, I think you mentioned, there's some guys that are specialty on the defensive side. We see guys like Dyson Daniels really take that immersion this season as well. So Jaylen Brown has a lot to be competing with. I think he has some chances to make that All NBA third team, obviously, with his stats. If we want to pull those up real quick, we can kind of dive into those. I think that he'd have the quality to be able to do that because Jaylen Brown has been absolutely very, very effective for the Celtics as we look 22 points on average, 46% shooting from the field, 31% shooting from three. So his shooting numbers have dropped a little bit, but his rebounding, his assists, his steals have gone up. His points have relatively stayed the same. And that's the crazy thing about this Celtics squad. When you look at the team last year and comparative to this year as well, right? They added so much talent with bringing in Jrue Holiday, Kristaps Porziņģis, Derrick White, and that has not hindered the production of their two stars in Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum. It has only made them better. Their numbers have only gone up with the assertion of better talent. And you would kind of obviously think that obviously that's good for the team, but you would think that maybe that is kind of not counterintuitive, but you wouldn't think that would happen because of the fact that they're adding so much other talent. You would think it would take away, but no, it just makes them even better, which I think just goes to show you how complementary these pieces are for these guys as well.
Yeah, I think it just makes them smarter on the offensive end as well. So
Hmm.
like they're not just taking as many stupid shots as they usually would, as we've definitely seen them do. But the rebounding and assist numbers going up for the both of them is huge. But I know Jaylen Brown's 3-point shooting has gone down a little bit. But I would kind of just say that's because of him playing hard on defense. And that just comes down to conditioning as well and being used to playing a certain way. So when you're on defense, you're working hard and you're coming down the court, just kind of putting up a three when you're tired. It's not the best look that you're gonna get, but just getting used to playing that way, and I think that'll come with more development. I mean, I would like to say that they're not even hitting their prime yet. They're still in their late
Hmm.
20s, like getting pretty much getting there. We're getting to that prime in about 2 years, so I can't wait for that. I mean, I I get too excited about it.
No, I don't blame you. I love all those talks. I love all those dialogues because a lot of people still don't realize that at 26 and 27 years old that these stars are still continuing to get better, and it's absolutely crazy to see them at this peak moment with people discussing them at these levels with what their age is, and I can't wait to see what they look like, at 28, 30 plus because I know there's still going to be that top tier echelon type of players, and a lot of people are going to be, thinking not so. But the Celtics, if as long as they have one of these guys or both of them, hopefully they'll be able to continue and compete throughout the NBA because they'll be making additions throughout the ranks, like guys like Baylor, Shireman, guys like that who kind of come through up and really come through and deliver for the Celtics. Look at a guy like, Sam Hauser. Look at a guy in um uh Peyton Pritchard, all these young guys that have, kind of grown with the Celtics team, even Namus Keita, JD Davidson, guys like that, Drew Peterson, they all have kind of worked their way up through this Celtics rotation. And I continue to see that for the future as well for this Celtics team. And Patrick, I think you kind of foresee that for the future too.
Yeah, I mean, we continue to draft well, like really well. So I'm never concerned for anything that Brad Stevens is doing. I've trusted in him ever since he walked into that position, and like I did miss seeing Marcus Smart go, but that's just being a Celtics fan and loving him. But I mean, it was the right move at the end of the day. I mean, it definitely hurt, but I think every single move that he has made has been a great move moving forward, and I can't even deny it.
100%. And I kind of am agreeing with you on that. I was obviously in that headspace. I could vividly remember when Marcus Smart got traded, where I
Oh
was, and how
yeah.
frustrated I was and devastated. And my friends were so excited that Kristaps was coming. And I was like, this is not going to work. This is not going to work. But truly, I was wrong. I was proven it. And I'm ever happy that it was proven that I was wrong. And luckily for the Celtics, Brad Stevens is one of the best at his job and knows when to make the moves at the right time and has been able to do that with not even just, these championship moves that have helped the Celtics, but those moves around that as well. Getting guys like Malcolm Brogdon to eventually pull off that Jrue Holiday trade, getting Derrick White on this team, getting, Daniel Tice for even though he didn't really help out the Celtics, just at least was some fun for the Celtics fans and bringing in a nice body to get some offensive rebounds, bringing in Dennis Schroeder to bring back Daniel Tice. You know what I mean? You gotta give your props to Brad Stevens over there because he has been doing it all. And to be honest, last night I was scrolling on TikTok, I was watching some highlights, and lo and behold, I see Brad Stevens coaching for Butler for the March
Yeah.
Madness team, and he's looking so
Yep.
young. It was so funny. I vividly remember as a kid watching those, like
Yep.
with my grandma and stuff. But it was just so crazy to see it now. You know what I mean? And just seeing him
Yeah.
as a coach and seeing where he is now, it's just wild.
Yeah, he's the king of the sideline out of bounds, right? I think Pop saying stealing all of his plays. Guy's a genius. You can't deny anything that he does.
100%, 100%. I got to give my props to Brad Stevens and Patrick. Talking about this Celtics team, let's kind of look ahead because you mentioned the Celtics have a little bit of a break kind of going into these games,
Yep.
which is very, very solid for guys like Kristaps Porziņģis to still recuperate from that illness. Jrue Holiday to still deal with that mallet finger injury because, like we mentioned, he still has that splint. He's got that padding. He's got that tape on that finger. It's going to definitely hurt him, and he's not going to go with surgery, so he's going to have to deal with that going into the playoffs. So these necessary games to have this rest is solid, and as we look with this Celtics team, they actually are going on a little bit of a Western Conference
Yeah,
trip. They had
no home game until April. No
yeah,
home.
they had a nice home stretch. We know 7 games straight, and here comes the road stretch. But
Yeah.
they're on the bus for 6 games straight. But they got Utah, Portland, Sacramento, and Phoenix. For actually, we could talk about Phoenix even though they won't be playing before next week. We got 4 games before next week. Let's get into them. Let's dissect them. We saw the Celtics take on Utah, and all three of these
I
teams
know
not too
we're like
long ago.
repeating the schedule. We're going back and forth. Like, I'm like, I keep getting confused. I'm like, is it? Am I reading this right? Like we
I
just
was
did.
I legitimately was just like, oh, we just played Utah not that long ago in my head. Oh wait, we just played Portland. Oh, we just played Utah. Like, oh,
And then
we
the Heat, and
legitimately
then they
just
get the Heat
played.
on the first game home. It's like, what are we doing?
Hmm.
Like, but yeah, again, I think hopefully Jaylen Brown will come back for that Utah game for a little bit of a ramp up again. If not, I'd rather him be very healthy for this Portland team, who again has been tough defensively. They're a good young team. We saw it when we had another exciting. What was that? The Peyton Pritchard game? That game, or was that the?
Yes.
Okay,
Wait,
yes.
the Utah game?
No, the Portland game.
Portland game was, I believe, the Peyton game. Yeah, it was the Peyton and
Okay.
Derrick game.
Yeah, okay, because he kills them every time he plays Portland.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so look ahead for that. If you guys love, looking at some plays, I think Peyton Pritchard would be in your plays. But yeah, man, that their team is so tough. But again, looking at Sacramento, actually, Sabonis is out for 10 days at least.
Yep.
I saw with an injury, so I believe the math is mathing in my head that he will not be playing.
He will not.
So a little bit of a road trip stretch here for the Celtics to go on a little bit of a win streak.
Yep, kind of get that comfortability once again right back right underneath them. And teams like Utah, Portland, towards the bottom of the ladder are going to be very key for some of these other young guys to step up. Like you mentioned, hopefully Jaylen Brown is back for this contest. I wouldn't expect the Celtics to run maybe Al Horford in this game. Maybe they'll rest him as well. But we could see some of these young guys kind of getting up going. I'd like to see Jordan Walsh get some comfortability underneath him as well in some of these games. And then Portland, once again, we saw Sam Hauser go off versus Utah. Peyton goes off versus Portland. Two guys to keep an eye out for these next two. You mentioned Kada as well last time we saw Utah. So I definitely want to mention to keep an eye out on Kada as well. Don't necessarily know if we'll see Tillman, but it's always someone to keep in the back of your mind as well.
I
But
know.
but Sacramento gonna be a fun game. You mentioned no Sabonis. He will be out for that contest, so that is very key for this Celtics team. The Sacramento Kings competing for a play-in spot as well, trying to get these wins. They're gonna be going out hungry, but for the Celtics, without Sabonis, as long as they can control the boards, Sacramento is not really a great defensive team. As long as the Celtics can play some moderately solid offense and can control those boards, I think they'll be able to handle that team. And then Phoenix, the other team that I cover and talk about as well, obviously in a disarray, gonna
Yeah,
be
who you
a.
got? Who you got in that game? Who you got?
Obviously, the Celtics. Phoenix is not going to be able to win that game. Offensively, they might be able to match, but defensively, they're not going to be able to stop anything that the Celtics throw towards them. So the Celtics will obviously get the best of them. They play them twice. They haven't played them all this season, so they get them twice in basically 2 weeks, which is going to be, some good fun for the fans over there. But like we mentioned, season closing up, 13 games left for the year. Feels like I saw someone talking about this, and I don't know how you feel about this, but it seems like this season has kind of flown by. I don't know if that's how you feel, but like the season
Yeah.
at some points has felt like it's flown by, but also stuck around for a while. You know what I mean? Like I'm sitting here at this point, I'm like,
Oh,
the season's almost over. That feels wild, but I also feel like at the same point, I'm kind of just like, I want it to be the playoffs. Can we get these games done? I want to just see them actually competing for something and trying. So I don't really necessarily know.
Well,
I'm kind of a mix of both.
the playoffs feels so long, regardless of us they're getting like the sweeps and all that stuff, like kind of having short series. But it felt like the days were so long waiting for those games, especially in the finals. Like, what
Hmm.
was it, 2 day breaks constantly? I'm like, oh my god, this is never gonna happen. Like, I'm never gonna see this game. But now it feels like we're playing every day. So
That's
I
the
think
best part about it is that you get to at least see them play almost every single night, and then I feel like you kind of get hit with that wave once the finals was over. Regardless if your team's in it or if not, once the finals is over, it's just like, oh crap, I got no basketball for a couple months. What am I gonna
yeah.
do? Like, you know what I mean? That's the part where you're like longing for these days in January to March, where you're just watching these meaningless games versus the Brooklyn Nets where Baylor Sharman's going off. But though in those dog days of July and June where it's hot out, you see all those free agency moves. You're wondering what this team is going to look like compared to those other teams across the Eastern Conference. It definitely gets you wishing for some more basketball.
Yeah, and also I think at the point like the Celtics have one of like the second easiest schedule right now,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that's also a reason as well because we're kind of expecting them to get these wins. There's not a lot of games that we're really looking forward to. I think
Mm-hmm.
I saw that we play the Knicks back in April. So I guess that's one to look for, or as well as Memphis, as they're a great team. But other than that, there's really not a lot of competition for the Celtics to end the year.
Yeah, you are hitting that right on the nose. I'm looking at it right now, and I can pull it back up for the fans right here. We got you mentioned it. You got Utah, Portland, Sacramento, Phoenix, San Antonio, right? So Western Conference, but no De'Aaron Fox, no Wembanyama in this matchup. The Memphis game is obviously going to be a good one. Potential
Yep.
finals matchup. Don't necessarily would say like big one, but
Yeah.
This could go on a little bit of a run. I could see them, bringing some fun for the Celtics in the finals. But then you mentioned after that, right? When you look at April, the last month, Miami, Phoenix, Washington, New York, Orlando, Charlotte, Charlotte. The Celtics at least close it off with their, ex-assistant head coach Charles Lee. That will obviously be some fun. Get those two home games. Obviously overpriced as hell because they're the last two games of the season. But yeah, nothing really captivated. You know what I mean? Towards
Well,
the end.
Washington with Marcus Smart coming home
Okay.
again.
Okay. That is true. That is true. You'll get to see
But
Marcus Smart
New
once again.
York, New York will be fun, and Orlando is always a sweat. I
Hmm.
hate playing Orlando. They're a matchup horror for the Celtics for some reason. I mean, Franz and Paolo continue to get. Thank God Mo Wagner isn't there this year for the rest of the year. He's down for the season, but he probably would have killed us too.
100%. Yeah, that Magic team for some reason just matches up against us so well, and I think they're very similar to the Celtics, where they got it kind of very similar construction. They got those two wings and Paolo and Franz Wagner who can both play both sides of the ball. They got those defensive playmaking guards. The more veteran one in KCP, the younger one in Jalen Suggs compared to Holiday and White. I do think that they obviously need some more variable shooting and a different center, but we saw with the Celtics, they didn't have all their tools in their basket off of
Right.
drafting and picking. They had to make some moves. They had to make some things around the edges, and I thought that Magic team would have went and made some more moves offensively. Would have gotten more stuff for this team to make a deeper playoff push. But with their injuries, maybe they felt like taking not necessarily to go all in this year and waiting for the offseason to see what's readily available to make those big splash moves or make some more moves on their own within their selections.
Right. I'm kind of getting excited for the draft now too.
Mm-hmm.
Like my
Mm-hmm.
favorite time of year is the draft. We got March Madness going on, and tomorrow we're gonna be doing that all day. I mean, I can't wait. Maybe that's a little preview to what we're dropping tomorrow, Bruce. I don't know. You
Yeah,
guys,
yeah,
you
yeah.
guys
We
have to
could
check that
definitely
out though. It's gonna be a good video. We're gonna be talking about some things with the Celtics, what we think looking ahead to the draft, and with players that are in March Madness and who to watch for and who would fit well with the Celtics team.
100%, and that's definitely something, a little bit of a sneak preview that we're definitely going to be given for tomorrow's video. So definitely check that out and stay up to date because we'll definitely be coming at you guys with some more Celtics news, kind of diving into that as we get closer into the off season and stuff like that. Especially with March Madness, kicking right around this weekend. I think that's kind of a perfect time to really get a video out on potential, 3 to 5 guys to just keep an eye out on for this tournament. If the team goes deeper, you hear their names spark up, maybe the Celtics could be a nice home for them. But Patrick, we went over a lot of things this Celtics episode. Before we sign off, I want to get your prediction. So let me know your thoughts on this down below. What do you think the Celtics go for this week? Like we said, we got what, 4 games? We'll count this Wednesday's game in there. Utah, Portland, Sacramento, Phoenix. What do you think? I'm thinking
Last time I
4 and
said
0.
this, last time I said this, we wouldn't lose, and then we lost to the Thunder instantly. But Bruce, this should be a 4-0 week for the Celtics. I think that Portland game kind of just scares me in a way, just because Portland's at home. They just played us recently. Again, they're a great defensive team, but guys like Peyton Pritchard are going to have to show up. I mean, this is when the bench is going to show up on this stretch. I could feel it because these aren't big games like we said, and they don't like to show up in big games apparently. So this is a game where I think that they're going to step up and play well. But this should be an easy sweep this week.
I agree. I think this should be a 4-0 clean sweep for the Celtics here. And I think you mentioned it perfectly. The bench really does step up on these road trips. And for the, tail end of the season, like we mentioned, these last 13 games, we want to see this development from these guys. Like we saw last night with Baylor Shireman. Even though, they might not instantly slot in for the playoffs, be an effective, decision maker. You could see a player like this, because of these last 10 to 12 games, cement themselves to Joe Mazzulla, that if one of those guys is cold and they are needed, they could be thrown in there for 3 to 5 minutes and then just instantly taken out, depending on if they can add some added offense or defense. And that could be that one spark that changes everything for this team in a series. We saw that last year with O'Shea Brissett. I want to give him a huge shout out because he's been playing fantastic with the Philadelphia 76ers. He recently just got picked up by them, but there was a game in game 2 where a lot of Celtics fans versus that Pacers team in game 1 saw the defensive tenacity, the hustle the Pacers were bringing. And I, for one, said, bring O'Shea Brissett in. Let him
Well,
get
that's
some
his
work.
former team. That's his
Mm-hmm.
former team. He wants to put him to work. I was saying that all series long, that he should have been playing more in that series because he wants his lick back. So,
Yep.
and be like, I'm here. I'm gonna go win a ring with them. So, you're gonna get this work.
100%. And he went out there and he balled out. I remember in game 2, he was like a +7 in like 2, 3 minutes, was just absolutely balls to the wall, grabbing offensive rebounds, getting blocks, making those high energy plays. And that's something that is just needed to get guys like Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Derrick White into that winning moment, winning energy, to feel like, all right, if that 12th to 13th man is giving in his all and he's staying ready when his number is called, I need to be ready. I need to lock in. And it just motivates those stars even more, especially on their home crowd, to really get it underneath them. And that's what I really love to see. I'm hoping to see that with guys like Jordan Walsh on this stretch, Luke Cornett, Neemias Queta, really finding themselves on these Western Conference road trips to really unlock themselves. Like you mentioned, Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, confidently to really continue this stretch of offensive juggernauts for the Boston Celtics off this bench, so they can have a deep shot in this playoffs and really scare some of these teams. I know this is a little bit of a weaker opponent list, but you definitely want to instill some fear going into the playoffs. And if the Celtics could, have a nice little 7, 8 game win streak ending the season, that's, I think, a great way to cap it off. So I'm going to go 4-0 this week as well. I don't think any team really stands a chance. Maybe Portland gives the Celtics a little bit of thunder, but like you mentioned, we got Peyton Pritchard. I think the Celtics will be good.
Exactly. And I think the guys to watch for me. I love Neemias Queta. So I think this is going to be a great stretch for him. And I think Baylor Shireman. I mean, he's been showing it the last few games that he's going to be able to step in, especially with Sam Hauser not shooting the ball that well. So I think those are my two guys. Walsh kind of been out of the lineup, so I'm hoping to see him play more. But I think he's more of a defensive guy at this point, and knowing what his role is.
100%. And I think that we could kind of see them, thrown in here and there. And that's what I want to see with Joe Mazzulla these next couple games as well. Is kind of testing some of these guys, letting them get some comfortability underneath them, and then finding out who's going to play what role when they're needed most in the playoffs. But the Celtics are going to be gearing up for this little stretch. We're going to be gearing up for it as well, getting you guys that content out every single day here on Celtics Digest regarding this team. So if you want to make sure you stay up to date on everything, make sure to hit that like button, make sure to hit that subscribe button, as you guys have been fantastic. And with the playoffs coming closer, we definitely want to be building this momentum, building up these hype trains, so that, when we do collabs with other Digest channels getting near the playoffs, we can definitely be having some fun with them. But thank you guys once again for tuning into this weekly live stream here on Celtics Digest, where we broke down everything Celtics. Next week, we'll be live once again and be breaking down things with this Celtics team. Should have our guest once again here next week. And if you saw the sneak peek, you might know who it is. But we'll give you guys a little bit of a drum roll of anticipation if you didn't. Let us know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Let us know how you feel, and we'll catch you guys in the next stream. Have a great rest of your day, and go Boston Celtics. Peace out, everyone.